Hey, let's talk about spiritual awakening, and specifically then versus now. I would like for some of you to share your story, if you may, because there's quite a big age difference, and people nowadays don't really understand what it was like back then. People look at 80s and, yo, it's been a while, right? Feeling old yet? I know I am, right? That's funny. Anyway, I think there's quite a difference in the world we live in, and some people have an advantage today. Some people had an advantage back then. But it is still dangerous for some back then. Back then, right? When is it? 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, 1990s. I would say let's take a group from that being back then. A lot of people would look up information, and I would assume, I haven't read that much, I haven't worked with people, I haven't heard their stories, but I'm interested if you were to share one. But I would say from at least those that I've talked to, my perspective is people had a lot of interesting materials from books, audio tapes, maybe, because internet wasn't a thing back then, so you can't really just call someone easily and talk about all these topics. And then you find out information, you read about stuff, and if you start talking to people, they will look at you and consider you being crazy. I would just look at a figure like David Icke, how for years he has been telling the world what's going on and how he has been ridiculed, laughed at, and in today's world, after all these years, I think 20, 30 years, how long has it been since he's been talking about all this stuff? Now people are like, yeah, he told you all. Now people are looking up to him. But there was quite a period of time that had to pass for the view on those topics to change. So back in, let's just go 30, 40, 50 years ago, if people would look up information, read about it, and talk to others, one is being considered crazy, but another one, well, hippies, okay, just, maybe that was an advantage. But probably the biggest difficulty is people are looking for ways to get better, to be free. They look up or naturally experience Kundalini awakening, naturally experience getting out of body, and a lot of these things where they start seeing auras, start seeing energies, hearing voices, seeing entities, and all of these experiences where people might be targeted. But when you talk about these subjects to someone, they might not get you. And people didn't had access back then to what was going on. They didn't knew what it was called. Now it's easy. Oh, I'm hearing voices. Google, Siri, why am I hearing voices? And they're gonna give you plenty of stuff. But back then, you talk to someone, they might give you an idea or two of what's going on with you, but oh boy, that was difficult, I would say. And so people looking for answers would end up in groups and cults and end up programmed. Scientology, Teal Swan Club, a lot of other places. I'm not saying all of it is bad. A lot of it, a lot of these groups, a lot of these leaders, gurus, and people who are just sharing information, a lot of them have good information. But the problem becomes when that information is filled with some lies, or when someone's trying to benefit from it, make religion out of it, and then the government gets involved, then it's taken over, then we have infiltrators who are using those groups, those places to just give false information, just mislead people a little bit here and there, but it's easy to get caught up in it all. For people who are looking for purpose, for people who are standing out, feeling different, or wanting to talk about all these different subjects, I was like, okay, I have to get away from one group, get into another one. So I would assume back then it was quite difficult. Nowadays, while the access to information is much easier, something happens to you, you experience something, hearing voices, seeing entities, seeing auras. Oh, some incident happened? Well, look up. ChatGPT, Gemini. Google, you just type it down and you get tons of answers. So now you're like, you have an overload of information. But the difficulty in it is that now that information is on the internet, but it is being monitored and it is being used again to misguide and misdirect people. Again, there are tons of groups and cults, and they've been doing it for years. So long. So for them, all of these psyop missions to where they know, oh, well, we've been doing it for 60, 70 years. We know how to control people. We know how to give them false information, misguide them, but they're buying it. So it's not that people haven't learned. People haven't been taught properly. And nowadays, you experience Kundalini awakening. Well, that's, I would say today, it is more rare than it was back then because of this overload of technology, because of what's being put in our food, what we're consuming, constantly beamed, phones, telephones, computers, laptops, watches, AirPads. That's one thing. Chemtrails, then, all the stuff we breathe, and now the COVID, tons of vaccines. We're just have so many things that is really affecting our bodies. So people back then who would naturally get out of body, who would experience Kundalini awakening, who would find information like naturally would just come to them. Yeah, they had an advantage, but I would say it was much harder for them to find a group, to find someone to relate to, and to casually talk about these topics. Now it is more acceptable. Of course, people will call you names still, not as much as back then, probably. You ain't gonna be lynched, you ain't gonna be burned on stake. But at the same time, oh, fake news, conspiracy theorist, oh, you're making shit up. So you have people calling you names and telling you stuff, but now, like, you have more freedom to believe in that stuff. And yet, people look at all of these experiences, getting out of body, Kundalini, lucid dreaming, seeing energy, seeing aura, seeing like entities, voices, and all this stuff. People want to experience it, and they don't know the dangers of it. Some. I wouldn't say like it's all dangerous, just a tiny little bit. Where for those who are not ready, or for those who haven't tapped into any of the spiritual stuff, and if they experience Kundalini awakening, that's like too much, too fast. It's just too hard to handle for some people. They start hearing voices, start seeing things, it gets overwhelming and they panic, and then they start shoving pills down their throat because they assume that they're not normal. But at the same time, nowadays, with the tech being more advanced, and of course, look up, tons of patents are on directed energy weapons, voice to skull, remote neural monitoring, and just list keeps on going with how certain groups and agencies can affect you. How they can put a voice in your head, how they can change your feeling state, put thoughts, change your actions. Now it becomes more like a Truman Show. If back then you kind of were undercover, you knew stuff, but okay, I don't talk about it, and I'm looking for purpose in life. I'm looking for how to use information. I'm looking for ways to get out of body, more understanding. Like that was good. Now that is controlled, and I would say quite easily. So many people, and a lot of people who are massively followed. I don't want to bash certain groups and names and figures because, again, everyone has their own truth. Everyone has their point of view. So I can't say you're wrong, I'm right. No. Even everything I'm saying, filter it out, find whatever if you can benefit. And if not, well, sorry. That's just what I think. That's how I see the world. That's my own view. But you don't have to take it. There are a lot of people who have heard about Astro Command and gotten to following him and like really getting religious and stuff like that. Nowadays, you name it. Alex Collier, David Wilcock, Galactic, Cosmic Agency, Taigetan, Swaru. So many figures where you have to get really good at deciphering what information is true to you, what do you believe in, what are you strongly feeling about, and what is actually has some good information, take some of it, some, not all of it, but a lot of it is crap, A lot of this tons of BS that is basically used to misguide, misdirect people and control them. A lot of fear mongering where we constantly hear stories like, oh, next big thing is gonna happen, and the whole internet is full of it now. Now with AI, thanks, that's that's fun. Uh Tons of these channels, faceless channels, they have AI and a bunch of people writing scripts. So now it's not even authentic. It is a given text, and they're focused on certain groups who are being targeted specifically with those that are hurt and victimized, those that are feeling like black sheep of the family, those that are feeling isolated, so to speak. A lot of variations, but there are plenty of videos, gurus, people making content where it's like, to make you feel special is one thing. Oh, the special 144,000 souls. The next big thing, oh, the chosen ones, oh, the star seeds. And they're using big fancy words that are discharged, and people are like, oh, yeah, I identify as a indigo kid. I identify as a star seed. I'm a Lyran. I'm a, like, who cares? Everyone is. Absolutely everyone is. You're not freaking special for having this one little thing in your title and name. Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if that's offensive to you, but it's like every single one of you, consciousness has been living for billions of years. You've had plenty of experiences before coming here. Of course, each and every one of you who has been living here had an experience somewhere else. So of course you have lived with possibly Lyrans, possibly Pleiadians, possibly the Irma. Amazing. Everyone did. So you're not special. It's like, you're human. Everyone's like human here. So you're like, so? Like, no one really gives a damn. But there's specific groups that are like charging those words with, you're special. And they give you these false hopes or something to look for. Like, oh, this big event is gonna happen. And, warning, warning. So people end up waiting months, years. There has to be the special event. Oh, a savior will come. Oh, the aliens will land. Oh, this will happen. And we have tons of stories about the end of the world and all of these changes and the rapture, and yeah, it just keeps on going. And you're like, yeah, any day now, I'll be extracted. My family will come and save me. Like, bitch, you don't need saving, okay? No one's gonna get you. Sorry about that. No one's gonna be there for you. No one's gonna save you. You have to do it all yourself because it was your choice to come here one way or the other. So you made a decision. Now you don't like life here. It got difficult. And instead of dealing with it, you're kind of like, it's hard. I don't want to do shit anymore. Please save me. And most people, I'm not saying everyone, but there's so many people who just go with feeling special and they stop working on themselves. They stop living and enjoying life and they wait for certain events. They read a bunch of stories and get involved in drama and can't even tell what's fake and what's real. They can't even tell the difference between their own thoughts and whatever's being inputted and controlled and affected. Like, yeah, I think nowadays, since we're being overwhelmed with information, having this ability to disregard and actually choose what you believe in, that is so difficult and so important. And I would say make it all about yourself. And of course, for some it might sound selfish, but with so many things where, oh, we have to save the world, we have to wake people up, we have to do this thing and that thing, and people are looking for some massive changes like New Earth, a 5D. Yeah, right, that's happening. Any day now, we're gonna come and be extracted. Here they come, spaceship. Tigetans will land. Woo! It's been 5 years, but they're coming. Like, no, they're not. Your consciousness, you, yourself, you can shift and get out of body. You can shift your consciousness, get out of here. You can shift your consciousness and then end up on someone else's spaceship. Yeah, that can be done. But with everything that's going on in life, with so many groups that are just targeting humanity, and let's not point fingers at, one group. Oh, Illuminati or deep state. Ooh, there's just so many. It's like you have an agenda or you have a certain opinion about reptilians, but you have an opinion about every single group and every person you've met. So same with them. A lot of different groups look at us differently. They have different agendas. They come and go. So we have tons of changes. Can't point fingers at just one group. They're different. And so to decipher and choose that specific information that will help you to be aware of yourself, to be aware of what's false, to have the strength to pick and believe in whatever empowers you, to have a strength to say, yeah, there might be some truth in what she says, but I don't agree with it. And that's good. Good for you. You don't have to agree with anything I say. You don't have to believe me. But that is a strength for people to be able to choose their own truth and go with it and stand for it and not just follow any story because it sounds good. For these agencies, for these groups that are controlled groups will always have hierarchy. Consciousness sees you as equal. You get out of body, you consciousness shift, and you meet at, let's say, Irma or a Pleiadian. They see you as equal, not someone who's below, not a victim. They see you as equal. But when we have groups that are like, oh, well, 7 levels of heaven and archangels and, like religious group is one thing. But then there's like hierarchy of queens and princesses and yeah, that is controlled. Agencies? It's in the name. Galactic Federation. Now there's so many ranks. The Council of Nine. You have to be special to be part of it. Yeah, like crap. But all of it has ranking. So the whole hierarchy, if they're not seeing you as equal, it is being controlled. Simple. Well, from my perspective, you might see it differently, and that's good. So with the hierarchy comes the fancy words. And I think like with Seth Speaks, Raw, and other materials, like plenty of books, plenty of these teachers who have had like advanced ETs being channeled through people. And we have a bunch of books written, we have articles, we have certain figures like Bashar and others. It's like, yeah, great, amazing information. But do you notice how a bunch of it is like words that most people cannot define? If you pick a certain word and you just can't say what it means, what the definition is in like 5 seconds, then okay, you have to stop and look it up. But how many of them in the book or in the article are used to just kind of slap your consciousness, so to speak, and get you unconscious, really? Have you noticed how in school or work, or when you're reading and when you're reading and you come up with a word you don't know? Well, yeah, you've heard of it, but you don't know the true definition. You kind of assume, you go through it and you start yawning. And then, have you noticed how after that, everything else you read doesn't go in your head? Kind of becomes blank, kind of becomes hard to remember everything that was written. And now you lose the meaning, and now it's like, yeah, it's good info, yeah. Interesting, I agree with it, cool. But you've skipped like half of it because you couldn't read up one word, couldn't find it. Okay. But there are so many groups who will use these fancy words to misdirect you, to get you unconscious so that they could fill in the gaps with false stuff to control you. You assume you know stuff, but you don't. And here comes a thing where when you're trying to teach and explain things, it's always been said, try to share that same information as if you were talking to a 5-year-old. Explain that same topic so that absolutely anyone on any level could understand. about using some fancy definition of like, oh, well, like, cool, generous, magnanimous, cool, simple, right? But then we go into science fiction and computers and like other sciences. Words are charged, and there are simple ways to explain it, and there are difficult ways. Of course, everyone, it's a part of like showing your intelligence, using fancier words. Great. But also, when it comes to teaching spirituality, when it comes to teaching about self betterment and how you can get through life, I think humanity is dealing with so much crap that getting it simple way, as in, you need to breathe and take yourself for a walk and go to a forest and leave your phone at home, please. Like something simple as that. Well, yeah, it's easy to understand. Anyway, with all these hierarchies and fancy words and people losing definitions and getting unconscious, it's just so easy to fill in info that's going to control us. And then another thing, all of these psyops where they give false hope, making you feel special, talking about some super duper nice fancy event that's going to come up sometime, and people end up waiting, not doing anything, not working on themselves. They feel special. I'm a star seed, so I know more than others. And yeah, I'm a high frequency, so I don't want to be around negative people and toxic people. It's like, shut up. It's like when you are kind or when you know something, you don't try to show it off. Look at Ellen DeGeneres, right? Constantly be kind, be kind, be kind. Is she kind to other people? Is she kind to her employees? Constantly using, oh, be kind, just preaching that and being completely opposite as a person. So if you are something, you don't have to show it off. People talk about Mr. Beast. Oh, super duper philanthropist. And like with all the information that's coming out lately, okay, now it's a whole different view. So again, everyone has a different opinion, a different point of view, and it's good for you. You choose what you want to believe in. But if there's a certain group that's like, yeah, you're Cersei, you're this, they're not gonna make you feel super special. They're gonna be blatant, humble. They can laugh about it, but it's not gonna be like you're the only one, you're the chosen one, and your goal is to wait for the rapture and like getting to the new Earth, and it's gonna be maybe in the next lifetime if you come here because it's not happening now. Like all of these stories, and I'm just ranting. I'm not saying I'm right about everything. It's just the way I view life currently. Might change. But I wonder how you see the world. I looked through my YouTube analytics and I have viewers who are below 18 and who are above 65. So I have quite a big range of people with various ages, teens to seniors, and you've seen life one way or the other. You've experienced things. You've had spiritual awakening because if you're watching this video, it's like, yeah, you've had it. Like, you've experienced something. So please share your story if you feel like it. Because I wonder what it's like for people who've seen plenty. Do you see true lies? Do you see through all of these figures trying to push false information and control people and control groups? Do you care about it? Do you get involved? Or you're like, I hear this, that crap again. I'm just doing my stuff, just chilling. It's all about me anyway. And then those who are, I don't know, 20s, 30s, teens, again, recently woken up, recently learned about life. Is the information on the internet enough? Are you deciphering that well? Do you find many stories believable, or do you have to cherry pick? How do you see the world? There's so many things and so many differences, and I think if we're able to discuss about it, because I'm interested in everyone else's opinion, interested but not necessarily caring about it. Like, okay, here's how Ben sees the world. Here's how Sarah sees the world. Interesting to see, to compare, to look at people, what people are like, to look at what their interests are, what their view on life is, and everyone else can choose how to cherry pick and find their thing. But yeah, life is constantly changing, and with all the different themes in life, eventually I think it's all about us anyway. It is all about you. You might ask, why am I here? What's my purpose? What do I want to do in this life? But it's all about you. Your story, your feelings, your thoughts. What do you want? What do you care about? For all of these topics of, like, hey, change the world and teach them and do this thing and fight the good fight and oh, yeah, great. Do you really want to get involved? Because there are so many games with, even the space opera. Good guys, bad guys. Reptilians versus Pleiadians versus humans versus Lyrans versus Dracos. So many groups out there. But if you play, if you engage, you're still part of the system. You're still playing part of the duality, black and white, good and bad. But you can also view, like, yeah, they have really interesting information. Cherry pick, find what's useful to you, empower yourself, but don't follow certain agendas, certain stories just because it sounds good. It's interesting. Yeah, cool. But still, it's all about you. Do you want to be part of it, or do you feel like, yeah, let's just disconnect from duality, do your own thing, be a viewer, an observer, see what's going on, have your own opinion, but don't get too involved. Make it about yourself. And then again, being proactive or giving in, being submissive, is so messed up. Anyway, I just wanted to rant a little bit, share my thoughts, and like, I have an idea for a video, so here it is. But yeah, looking forward to reading some of your replies, and hope you have a great day. See ya.